just want to remind you how to use a micrometer. As you can see, looking at this micrometer, as I twist the handle around, I can open and close a gap. And if I put something in that gap, turn the handle until it's just firmly sort of gripping, but not really sort of forced, then I will be able to take my reading from the dial here. So I've just twisted this handle so the jaws are just closed. And if you can see, I've got a 0 here, and this set of readings going around the handle will give me my hundredths of a millimetre. And you can also just see there's a 0 and a line. And these lines here are marking off underneath every ½ millimetre and over the top whole millimetres. So I've just closed my jaw, and first of all, the nice thing to note is that my 0 is lined up with my 0. So I don't have a 0 error. I don't have that systematic error that could cause a problem. So as I gradually make this wider, so I go up to 44, 45, 6, and I come to 0 again. So going around the handle, it's marked off in 50ths. Once my handle has done one complete turn, my jaws have opened by ½ a millimetre. And you can see that first ½ millimetre just marked off underneath. If I go round again, when I get to the next complete circuit, I've marked off 1 whole millimetre. So if I go around this much, my reading would be 1 whole millimetre plus 35 hundredths of a millimetre, 1.35 millimetres. If I go around again and just a little bit further, what you can see, say, is I've got my whole millimetre, and I've got 2 of those ½ millimetres. I've gone 0.5 millimetres, 1 millimetre. So I've got 1.5 millimetres marked off on the dial here, the line here. And on this turning dial, I've got 31 hundredths. So I've got 1.5 plus 0.31. So my jaws are open, my micrometer's jaws are open by 1.81 millimetres. So let's measure this wire. I'm going to place it inside. I've turned the jaws so they're just gripping, and I'd like you to tell me what you think that is reading. Is that sample 1? I've got a second sample here, different type of wire. They're all different thicknesses, so they look very similar. What is sample 2? And I'll try sample 3. Quite a bit thicker, this one. Now with all of these samples, okay, first of all, take that reading. With all of the samples, I didn't really want to waste loads of time, or loads of your time. I should have taken several readings and averaged them. So we'll do that with this. So I've got one reading there. A second reading there. And let's take a third reading here. There's my third reading. So I've taken 3 readings. If you maybe had your experiment like Young's modulus and you needed to measure the wire in several places, you would use something like this to measure, but you would measure in at least 3 places. So please, if you have an exam question, remember to mention that. There's one other piece of kit. These are vernier calipers. They're not vernier, they're just digital calipers. They're calipers because they've got those jaws that just open and shut. So if you just look at that, I've deliberately closed this one, but I've closed it. I actually deliberately set it, so we actually have a 0 error. So if you were using this set, you would press the 0 button. Okay. And so now they were closed. Now when I open, you can see that I'm measuring either the width of something put inside there. If I had placed the end of this, there's a sort of thing sticking out. So I can measure depth. So I could place this on the table and see, for example, in a depth of water, see how far up. And also, if I place this inside, if I place these jaws inside, they actually measure in something, they measure a gap. Rather than measuring something that's being gripped, they can measure the gap between two things. So I'm just going to quickly set this. So I'm going to create a zero error. So now, although these calipers are closed, they're actually got a wrong reading. Now, if you were doing this, you would press a 0, but I'm just going to do a couple of readings and let you work out from the readings that we're taking how thick these bits of wire are. So I've got another piece of wire here. This is sample 4. Okay, so that's so we had the reading when these doors were closed, and we've also had the reading with the wire. And the final one, so I've got again my reading when the jaws are closed. Remember, we're putting in this systematic error. The reason there's bits of sellotape on these was I had hoped to kind of like grip them nice and tight, make the whole thing look a bit more professional, but actually it was quite worked out quite tricky. So when I close that so it grips, there's a reading of that piece of wire. So that's your 5th sample. Sorry, it's wobbling. Hope you don't feel too sick. All right then. So when you've watched this, it'd be really good if you can just email me the readings for samples 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Tell me what thickness you think each one of those are.